Drug trafficking wants for relations between Colombia and the US to be broken, and they are managing and they are achieving this. Their influence in those Colombian politics that are going to back the extreme right wing of the US. They are regretfully managing and achieving the rupture of those alliances that had been built in order to persecute drug trafficking across the world. I will build other alliances. I will build alliances with other forces. I will not yield in the struggle to achieve that the state of Colombia does not belong to the Pablo Escobars, but it belongs to the people of Colombia. And in this struggle, in this way, we need to recognize that we do not only have a group of politics that are crying there in foreign powers, trying to topple this government, trying to see if my son in jail for reasons that everybody knows, if he could be led to a form of psychological torture, as happened like this when a journalist tried to have him kneeling down for a journalist, and she found that every Petro has dignity in his heart, because her intention of putting the son against the father, for the father to break down that evil intention of vampires, trying to put the son against the father under psychological torture at the prosecutor's office, and they want to reproduce it in the United States to see if a Petro will yield, not in the prisons of Colombia, but in the prisons of the United States. That's how long their evil powers have gone, the hatred against this government, and that hatred has one cause alone. That hatred to humble people, that hatred to simple people, that hatred to the fact that Colombia is a people that progresses, giving opportunities of life and study to people of Colombia, and not just a group of elite sons and daughters. They hate the mere conception of democracy. They don't like to see the squares filled with working class people, people who study, and they call you criminals. Criminals who took the government of Colombia, who set off a tariff that was a scheme against the population, and who took millions of pesos from the healthcare system and from hospital, and ruined the possibility of people to be able to afford the right to health care. Criminals who are capable of taking the money away from people who need that health care to live, because they prefer the death of people in order to fill their own pockets, their own accounts. It's that way. But they are not prohibited by international organizations, because they are the allies of the Treasury of the United States. Now we see here What are the reforms here proposed by this government? A labor reform that is being implemented day to day in the whole national territory. I've asked for the Minister of Labor for him to put sanctions on any enterprise, no matter how powerful it is, that is affecting on the interest of the workers, their dignity and their rights. And of course, they hate me, because this government is not going to the cocktails of the big businessmen, many of them money launderers. This government is going to the assemblies, to the working class reunions, to the working class places where the rural workers as well are looking at how the lands that used to be of drug trafficking, now they are the property of rural workers. Yes, of course, they are filled with hatred because we took 700,000 hectares from drug traffickers, from the struggle in order for them not to steal those lands, and those hectares are not going as governors did before, once again to drug trafficking, who are paying for that, or for the political class who are stealing those goods, but for the idea that those lands go to the hands, maybe dirty with land, those hands that are working hands, that have worked those lands, that have planted those seeds in order for those fields to produce food once again. They hate the idea that the mortality rate in just 3 years of government has descended to half of what it was when we came here. They hate the fact that we are now saving kids, thousands and thousands, from deaths, just because the doctors are making and are reaching those places where before, by the thousands, kids were just dying for lack of food or water. They took down our decree, who was able to bring down that mortality rate. And they say that I should not express myself, but the Constitution says that the president needs to abide by those rulings, but not that it should remain silent. Because I do need to say, what wrong was that system that came from the law of Colombia was producing, if it was managing to lessen the number of kids that were dying because of hunger? What wrong was it doing for someone from the justice system to put an end to that law, as if he didn't want kids to live in this country? Of course, I abide by those rulings, but I won't be silent. What is Magistrate Ibáñez doing by not allowing that the pension reform will guarantee the elderly people a pension enough to live with dignity, with a smile on their faces? They can take as long as they want. I've already, in the national budget, I've found the budget in order to give the pension, the necessary pension funds for the elderly people of Colombia.